Hello, I'm Giulio Agostini. I'm the chairman of M.I.C.E. I'm here today with a big interview with Chris Skeith, who is now the MD and CEO of UFI. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Jules, and say thanks very much for the opportunity of coming in to speak to you. We spoke about this, God, way back at Christmas, I think, and it's finally taken a few months to get it together, but thanks for the opportunity of coming down to wonderful Kingston upon Thames to have a chat.
That was a big deal for you leaving the AEO, first of all.
Yeah. I loved the members. I loved the team. I'm getting a bit emotional thinking about it, to be honest. That was tough. So 10 years of, I'd say, the best job in the world, but it didn't feel like a job. You're just, this industry is amazing. The people are amazing. The team around we were amazing. The support of the board. You're making lifelong friendships in this industry. So, I wasn't particularly looking, but then you think, I've done 10 AO awards, 10 AO conferences, 10 forums, and then the opportunity to come and do something different. You think, well, if I've got another 10 years left in me, how would I feel after my 20th awards? Probably a little downtrodden a little bit. So the opportunity to make a change wasn't something I was looking for, but it seemed an obvious move.
What were your legacies that you were kind of most proud of that you built over that decade?
I think legacy always feels a little bit a funny statement to me, but we as a team, we accomplished quite a few things. So when I started, there was literally me and no team. We were, financially weren't as secure as we wanted to be. But
because you'd gone through a bump, hadn't it? Gone through quite a bad.
Yeah, it was. I think there was a few things where maybe he wasn't dialed into the members enough. So a few events that should have been scheduled weren't scheduled, but they were in the budget. So there was a few little bumps to kink out. But listening to the members and delivering what they wanted was the key to success. And we went from 63 members to, when I left, I think it was 103. And that would also, as you mentioned, the churn, right? So they always say, like, grow the membership, and you go, yeah, I can do that, and then they buy each other, which is really frustrating. But that's that incubator pit, the entrepreneurial environment that AEO creates to help the smaller businesses grow, so then they get bought by the larger businesses, is fantastic. So we grew the membership from 63 to, say, just over 100, which is great. Turnover went from about 440,000 to 1.3 million over that 10-year period. And primarily that's, it's funny, the primary objective is diversify your revenue streams because we're too reliant on membership fees. So you go away and diversify into sponsorship, the event revenue and membership. And then you have the pandemic, which wasn't great. So you lose all 2/3 of your revenue streams overnight, but we weathered that storm really well. So I think for me, growing the membership and growing the financial security of AEO was good for AEO, but actually that greater engagement with the community was what then created better events, more events, but also things like the working groups and better research and better advocacy as well. So, dialing into the members was probably really cool. And then back to your point about the UK organisers, there, when I started, maybe 10, 20% of them had an international portfolio. By the time and our products and services for international weren't that strong, but I wanted to make that like 50-50. There were some key, sole international players who are based in the UK, not two of which are no longer around. So Mac Brooks and Tarsus, for example. And we worked very closely with them to develop lots of international products and services. And by the end, it was about 50-50. So 50% of the organisers have a international portfolio broadly, and we did lots of things to support them. So they are a incredibly entrepreneurial spirit of organisation, and they're able to geo-adapt events, find new markets, work all over the world, which is great. And they don't really compete other than who they're going to buy. In an environment, the world is a big place. The markets, you choose which markets you want to be in, where you want to be in the world, and then your success, you dictate what that looks like. So it was actually quite a harmonious 10 years of working with them.
The UFI job presents itself. Huge job. And what was your initial reaction?
I thought they got the wrong number. But no, the initial reaction is we need to go through a process, right? So you've got to go to market and make sure you get the right person for the job. So we made sure that we did that because that's really important to me. And then my initial reaction about the role was, God, yeah, if we can, there's some of the things that we made a difference with at AO. If you can do that on a global scale, that's quite exciting, And as a team, if we can nail down some of those bigger challenges that we face as an industry, that would be really cool. So maybe that is legacy. I don't know, but it is. Yeah, you get a little frustrated talking to, say, government in the UK where they put us in a box, and you've got to try and you keep trying, and that's fine. But last week I was in Japan speaking to the Minister of Trade, directly, and you're able to talk about the same narrative, but that's a success. And then other markets can take that activation going back, well, look, in this market, they're talking directly to the Minister of Trade. So there's a more opportunity to share that success and collaborate, and then have all the other members being able to take that to their governments to make more of a difference, if that makes sense.
Is it like a hard upbringing for the UK market? The hard, you brought up strict parents, and you have to fight a little bit harder than they do abroad, because I think some of the subject matter is a long way behind our thinking. We're more sophisticated in the UK, it seems to me.
I guess that's one of the appeals of the job, is that everybody's on a different stage of the cycle. Like an event launches and grows, and it may work out or it may change. So, being able to, for me, regardless of where people are I'm bound to give an easy answer here, right? But regardless of where people are, the opportunity to share that best practice and what other people learn is great. And the narrative around Japan, for example, was about venue capacity. So if you increase the capacity, you're going to increase the economic impact, not only to the local environments that you serve, but also the markets that then you could be known for. So the narrative is different in each country, whatever that looks like, but the opportunity to have those really conversations about sharing those best practices to drive that positive change is what really appeals. And I think we just sort of accept where things are around the world. So I wouldn't judge where people are, but the opportunity to share what other people are doing is hugely exciting.
Okay, and do you think, therefore, that going back to the UK marketplace, that's you're going to be in a strong position to do that because how far developed they are?
They are serial. They see gaps in markets. They create markets. There's got to be a reason why I don't know what the stats are, but so many of the top 10 organisers around the world. But then other members. So 2 of the pavilions at World Expo last week were built and supported by Colmesser. So there are lots of best practices around, and we're maybe more familiar with the UK one. But I think the UK market, the UK organisers have, they've certainly, helped other organisations. So the input with CISO has given that another flavour and another view and another look. And then it's almost a bit of a stepping stone. So if you look at maybe Sasios, you've got some big UK-based players in there. 19 have just come in there. Closer Still have been there for a while. Clarion have been there for a while. And over time, you can see the management of Sasios, this association over there, so Richard Ireland is the chair, who's the regional CEO for Clarion. So I think that spirit of running shows flows through lots of other organisations, and but the UK organisers are prolific with their regional offices around the world. But then you have got, if you look around India, quite a lot of the messes have been there for quite some time, and maybe the UK market haven't. So, around the world, there's a slightly different picture. And I think probably all organisers now are also, we've almost had the perfect acid test about the value of our industry. So you are forced to stop. You then, everybody says it's dead. Everybody says it's digital, which they've been saying for about 20 years, right? And then, this need to connect, this need to meet, is really great. But going forward, the need to build trust. So, the organisers all around the world are taking that story, and yeah, I think that everyone's got their successes, and I would say running a global organisation, but the school of hard knocks, maybe when you look at breaking into new markets, is tricky. But a lot of organisations done that all over the world. But I think we're in a really good place as an industry.
Did you walk into a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, no plan at all? What was there? What did you walk into?
Um, I suspected that UFI was a great organisation run by a dedicated team with great support from the industry.
But in reality,
And in reality, and I also, so I suspected when I interviewed, I said, if we're looking for evolution, I'm really interested. If you're looking for revolution, that's not the case. So in the past, I've walked into revolution with the creation of ESSA. So I joined as two associations that agreed to merge. So I've sort of done that, and then I've walked into AEO, which is about winning hearts and minds of the members and delivering what they want. But my sense was UFI was evolution, not revolution, and I'm delighted to say that's what I found. To my surprise, the team is really exceptional, and for me, working with a global team of international people, their commitment, their drive, their energy, enthusiasm has been amazing. So I've inherited a great team with sort of great products and services. So it's about evolution, but I also think there are some opportunities to do things a little bit differently, which is exciting. There are some holy grails that I'd quite like to find in my tenure. The hardest bit is time, right? It's a big train set with a lot of people in a lot of markets with a lot of history. And every day there's new things, which is inspiring and exciting. And it was only last week that I started to do some things for the second time.
Are there goals? Are there targets specifically that the UFI team is trying to deliver over a period of time?
Actually, I think there's three.
Okay.
I think there's three. In the sort of bucket of research, for example, demonstrating the value of the sector. We've got size and scale, we've got economic impact, but if we can start trying to find some levers, some ways of demonstrating the economic value or the return on time, return on investment, return on whatever it is people are looking for, which is super tricky, because you could look at the coach and bus week where the value of a bus is €500,000 or whatever, and you look at another show where it's only a few hundred pounds or something. So, but there's got to be something with 900 members in 90 countries, with all these hundreds of thousands of shows around the world. There's got to be enough scale to create some kind of metrics that would enable brands to really demonstrate the value, and also looking at how technology is used in events now with pre-arranged meetings, and still keeping serendipity, because I'm a big serendipity fan. But there's got to be some different ways. So, evolving the research to sort of create more value-based measurements and or metrics that then can be used by customers is one. The advocacy side, again, I think we all probably found that with COVID, we'd gone out with somebody for the first time and asked them to marry us straight away, and we didn't maybe get the answer we wanted to do. So we've got to carry on that courtship with governments around the world. And I think UFI has a great opportunity to craft that narrative to make sure that it's really clear that then everybody else can take to their local markets. We're not going to do global advocacy, but articulating messages and value propositions, sharing case studies, those kind of things are ways. Because in COVID, we were, you're looking around about what one person was doing, and well, they're doing it, so we should be able to do it, right? But if we're trying to unlock the economic benefit of events to markets and industries, there's lots of different value propositions that we can sort of seek and share, because that's our role, I think, as UFI. And then talent, which is another thing. So again, very consistent with AEO, looking at all those different elements. But the talent, the choose events is really key and important. But as a as a volume employer, we're not really there. So, but finding some way of untapping that sort of, it's cool, isn't it? We do some amazing things. We see some amazing places. We are given incredible opportunities to really get close to the markets that we serve, whatever we do. And those are amazing. We're not just selling pens or widgets or whatever, we're really at the beating heart of the communities that we serve. So finding a way of articulating that maybe at scale or giving people the insight and information to enable them to take it, because I think we need to empower the people we have within the industry to cascade that network out. I've got a really cool job doing cool things. Why don't you come and join us? Because we're never going to be the Navy or the Army who advertise in all the cinemas about joining our sector, right? Because we're much more bespoke and specialist than that. So I think those three things. So develop the research, develop the advocacy narrative, and try and really convince people that we were in a great industry and they should come and join us.
Well, how many countries could service exhibitions, do you think? Because there are many countries that haven't got purpose-built exhibition centres, for example. Every country should, shouldn't it? I mean, it's a fundamental for building an economy. I would have thought.
I agree. I mean, ultimately, when you're wanting to restart an area or whatever. So, I mean, the opportunity could be anywhere doing anything, but it depends on the ambition of the government. And I think we could, again, be in a good place to sort of help demonstrate by case study. This is what other people are doing. So, often the narrative of recent meetings around the world is capacity. So more capacity equals more events equals more local economic impact equals more industrial sector impact as well. Not that dissimilar to the UK in many ways. That if we had, and then the debate is it in the right place? Has it got the right connections? But there seems to be there's an appetite from venues to get more venue space. There's an appetite from the organisers to create more events, and then the suppliers are again able to help sort of fulfil that. But we create those markets ourselves, but we need the permission to trade, which is, I say, the availability of safe places with with the venue stock and the infrastructure to enable it to happen.
Do you get approached, therefore, by governments or by countries or trade bodies in countries to say, like, we want a bit of this exhibition market. How can you help us? Is that a thing? Does that happen?
Yeah, we have conversations with people who are looking at how we have quite a few delegation visits coming to the office in Paris. So government missions coming to explore and understand, and again we're able to relay what other countries do by way of best practice, the opportunities that they've got. So we're very much an enabler, and also I think UFI sometimes had a bit of a bad reputation insofar as it seems to be wanting to do everything, but we're there to support local markets. So we were in Japan last week, supporting a mission to speak to the Minister of Trade, but that was in partnership with JEXA, which is the Japanese association. So adding that extra global perspective and view, powered and empowered their conversations with their government to hopefully convince them to take on the actions that they thought were appropriate, which is sort of more space. So we're very much, we sort of consult and communicate, and we are approached from time to time from lots of different people, whether that be governments wanting to see how they can help create industries, or whether that be from suppliers looking at how they can reach markets. The connections that we have around the world through our 5 regional offices are really powerful. So again, I always used to say, if I don't know the answer, I know somebody that does. But genuinely, in this case, I don't know the answer, and but I do know people that do. So
it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I mean, there's opportunities, but also huge mistakes. And how can we get that wrong? What could UFI do to be? Well, look, this is the blueprint. This is how you do it.
I think it's those ongoing conversation. I mean, look, it was not that long ago that a particular venue in the east of London was deemed a bit of a white elephant, and there was nothing around it. And now look at it. I mean, it's an incredible space.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you also look at how other venues in the UK have also expanded their offerings to do different things as well. So I think
Haven't all worked though. That hasn't all worked, has it?
no, but hey,
Yeah.
life is a roller
I
coaster.
know, but is that a blueprint that we could get towards? That these are the ingredients that you need that will support.
I think so. And also, and there's often, again, it's last December we had a business vision in Riyadh, and when you're literally speaking to the decision makers about how they could build an industry, and there's a blend there. You've got the broader topics that we can cover. You've then got consultants and specialists that can help, and on the more detailed side of stuff. But where were we early this year? We got a business mission going to Bogota later in the year. So from UFI's role, I think it's to keep those conversations going, bring in experts wherever that is, from the organising community, from the local associations, from the consultants who can share it all. But I think the industry is hugely successful. It's just about sharing those, but there is and it depends how you create that venue stock. I mean, India is an area that has been short of space for quite some time now. That stock's becoming on track, and now it's helping them build up the sort of supply chain around those different areas and everything. So, there we were in Cairo a couple of weeks ago, and again there was a new exhibition space around there as well, which is all coming around. But I guess from our perspective in the UK, we have a view on how long that takes, and I can't remember how long, and then other countries, it's different. It's a different time span.
I mean, was it 22 million people in Cairo, or 115 million in Egypt? But it just didn't feel like they were ready. If I'm honest, they were lovely, but I don't know. You go over to countries like that, and UK contingent, which again is the most likely to launch abroad, and thinking, okay, the audience is here, the marketplace is here, there's wealth here. Are they ready for this? Is the infrastructure here? It didn't feel like it.
It's hard, and I think the other thing is about where you choose to work. So you look around, some organisers are choosing to be in Riyadh and KSA, and others aren't. Some are choosing to be in America, and some aren't. Some are in Germany. So over the, goodness me, 20 odd, 30 odd years I've been in the industry, you can see hot markets, and you can see, the not rise and fall, but the interest levels peak, and that's what's exciting, because the opportunity is there. It's just about crafting it and getting around it, and we've all heard these wonderful stories from Stephen Brooks driving around Europe in his Jag with petrol cans on the back seat, really opening up that sort of European market, and Sandy Angus, working around there. So there's some real amazing individuals that have really created those. And I guess if you said to them way back, well, it's not all ready yet, we've still got the opportunity to try. So I don't think you've put timelines on it.
You've been everywhere. You've been on touch ground. Yeah. Seriously, what's that like, mate? Because honestly,
it's just mental. So I went in eyes wide open, and the reality is, with the old role, I was out quite a lot. In anyway, coming into different events, seeing members and everything. The difference is the touch points with members aren't one-to-one, they're one-to-many. So going to the UFI events around the world have been a great way to connect with so many members in one place, and also get a feel for the markets themselves. So those that's been fine and not a problem. I spent a fair bit of time in Paris at the HQ, which is great to get to know the team, which is really important. And it's been okay. I preserve the weekends, still at home at the weekends with the family, and then traveling in the week isn't hugely different. There's probably a week. Each month is one more trip than there was before, but it is great, and what a privilege to see so many members and in all these different places. So that it is cool. And we were in Cairo. I mean, it's like, what's going on here? I'm just a simple bloke from Doncaster, and here you are hanging about with your industry friends and walking around the pyramids. I mean, it's really cool, really cool.
It is. It is. So actually, what's the schedule for the rest of the year? I mean, here we are. You've got Greece next week, haven't you? So
Yeah.
So tell us what's the rest of the schedule?
So we got record attendance in European Conference, which is fantastic. All the UFI events this year. So we were in Melbourne at APAC in February. We had our CEO Summit in January in Milan. We had M.I.E. in Cairo, which again, all record numbers, which is fabulous. But we reflect the market. So if the market's doing well, we do well. So if the market's tight, then things tighten down. So, but I think having those events that are delivering that value is important. So next week's European conference. Then we have because this year's our 100th year, so we're 100 years old. So we have a big celebration alongside our global congress, which is in November. That's over in Hong Kong. So that should be exciting. And then we've also got a few other sort of smaller trips. So we have got a business mission going over into sort of LATAM, which is again area I've not sort of visited just yet. So we're going over there. So taking a bunch of members around to see different venues and ministers to talk about the sector. So that's literally getting, that's confidential this week, but it's getting relayed to the board next week. So that's going to be in October, going over to Mexico for that. So, and then the other thing that I've got to do over the next 6 months, not necessarily event related, is review the learnings of the first 6 months, compare them to the strategy, take the feedback from the team, and then start shaping our sort of strategy for from the end of the year going forward as well. So there's a fair few things to do, which is good.
Do you know what next year's schedule looks like yet or not?
Next year, yeah, we've got CEO Summit. It's going to be in Vienna. European is in June, and that's going to be over in Izmir in Turkey, which is good. And then our global congress in November, that's going to be in Bahrain. So we've got a good selection there. And then we haven't set the government delegation, the business to government meetings as yet, but we may well do some smaller activations. We tend to do the MEA conference every other year-ish.
Right, so it's not every year.
Not for MEA, but we've also got APAC in February, and that is in Bangkok. But we may do a Latin America one as well. So LATAM and MEA tend to be every 18 months-ish.
Okay.
And then we have APAC sort of February time, European June time, Global Congress November time. So those three mainstays. So something every other month, pretty much.
Very much. So let's go back to the you mentioned CISO earlier, and obviously your enormous history with the AEO. What is your relationship with the associations around the world, like the domestic ones, and what is it, and what are you trying to make it?
So there's an underwritten statement around UFI. So we always say we should be the second association you join. Okay.
Right.
So
I was going to. Well, that was my next question, actually.
Yeah. So and so therefore, if you are a US-based organizer, your first association should always be CISO. If you're a UK-based organizer, it should always be AEO. If you're Singaporean-based, it should be SASIOS. Without a shadow of a doubt. If, however, you have aspirations to go international and global, then that's where we have a different value proposition to those organizations. So that fundamentally, that's where we sit. We offer different things as products and services, and then we each are judged on whether or not we give value, and if we do, people renew. So, and I think we've all got a really good retention rate. So we're very good at what we do in terms of CISO, AEO, UFI. For many years have had monthly catch-ups with my peers around associations around the world, because ultimately, things are very much the same but different. So it's quite a lonely place running an association because you're generally the only one in a region. So you know, how do you judge your success? You have different leaders coming on from the membership to have different drivers. So the conversations with my fellow association directors have been, you know, how are things going in the business? You know, revisiting strategy documents or revisiting fee structures and all the mechanics of running an association. I've got open relationships with many association directors around the world, but I think more proactively that's enabling us to now look at, you know, what's the point in having 3 economic impact figures for the same region because you've all got slightly different terminology, or you count the size and scale of the market slightly differently. So there are some real positive, progressive conversations going with UFI, CISO, IAEE, JMIC, EIC. I won't go and try and do what all the acronyms are, but there's been quite a lot of change of leads, which has enabled us to have different conversations. So I think last week it was announced that JMIC, the Joint Meetings Industry Council, of which I've just joined the board, have set up a memorandum of understanding with EIC over in the US about trying to align on some economic impact figures. And it's all because our memberships are slightly different, right? So we're UFI is just exhibitions. You know, AEV in the UK arguably has got conference centres as well as exhibition venues. So if you're measuring the economic impact of activity within AEV, are you doing conferences and meetings? Or are you just doing exhibitions? So SASE is just, in the UK, is just exhibitions, but there's other bits that are happening in Excel and around the place that's different. So you got to, what would be great if through that partnership and through those collaborations, we end up with one source of truth.
There's not a gathering of clans though, is there? I mean, and should there be? There isn't a gathering of every association that services the exhibition industry around the world. Could there be? Should there be? Is that an UFI thing? What?
There are some, so for example, CISO have got a session at European Events Week next week, and UFI has a session around their leadership summit in Indianapolis in August. So we also collaborate formally. So not a gathering specifically for associations. I'm not sure how appealing that would be, but we do connect. So we connected last week at IMEX. So we caught up with IAEE and IMEX. In January, we co-collaborate with for CEFCO, which is the China government's exhibition for the events sector. So we have a four-way memorandum of understanding to help them run that event, and that's UFI, CISO, IAEE, and ICA. So there are lots of formal collaborations and a lot of individual conversations, and those conversations are often the same. You know, so I know that, for example, Sentil is part of ICA, who's also part of JMIC, who's also part of EIC. So I think the key to success maybe isn't about a gathering for a gathering's sake, because time is one thing we haven't got a lot of, but sharing what we've got planned, and then can other people hook their trailers onto that project, so we're not doing the same work twice or 3 times or 4 times. And all those leaders that I talk to, it's that ambition to keep things really simple and collaborate. And why wouldn't you? It's everyone's a winner. We've all got a slightly different purpose. I don't, and I think I've said this to you many times before. I never saw AEO as having any other competition than itself. It needs to listen to its customers and deliver what they want. And if it does that, it deserves to exist. And throughout the pandemic, all the associations where there was different people going, there's too many associations that don't deserve to exist, they all survived. So they must be serving a purpose.
Yeah.
And
there's also fear of not being in it. I'm dropping out. You never know.
But possibly. But I don't know. I think there's more relevance and clarity that we're all pushing ahead on, and the same in your business. if you follow what you need to help create and stimulate and focus the thought processes, but as long as you're delivering what people want, and it's fine. So I think, but our mutual members are keen that their money isn't wasted by doing 4 research projects on economic impact study in Kingston upon Thames. Let's actually do it all together, and there's no competition in that. We're just providing better data to the market.
Are your members from the AO going to come with you and join UFI? I mean, obviously, several of them, big ones, are already there, but there's more that could come. Right?
I think I think that our board, our exco, Damien's on there, Lisa's on there, so David from M.I.C.E is on there. So if their businesses are global and if they see a value in the UFI proposition, then yes, I'm sure they will come along. We're not, I'm not, and that should be an additional activity for them, right? It's not either or. The AAO delivers products and services relevant for their needs. If UFI delivers products and services additional to what they need, then that's great. And for example, in the UK, they SAS is just out, and every year AAO commission UFI to do an up-to-date breakout for the economic impact. So so there's those partnerships and collaborations, because AO can get that a fraction of the cost of going to Oxford Economics directly, and the terminologies and methodologies that are used are consistent globally. So there's a double win there for AO, and the win for UFI is it's making that available to all the associations around the world. So I think that it should be complementary work that all the associations do, and I don't want to compete. And again, people will judge me on the outputs. They'll get value and they'll stay, and come, or they won't. My competition is myself.
What does success look like then for you? Let's say over the next 18 months, couple of years, like you can feel like you're on track. Are there milestones for you, or is it just keep the engine running smoothly, or what are you saying?
Passing my probation, that's probably the first little milestone for me. But I think, we've had just on the board slides last week, and there's no staff changes. And we're growing headcount to do some more work around research and some more work around community marketing. So, I think, sensitively, growing products and services in tune with what members want, I think would be really useful. I mean, obviously you've got your basic metrics of, retention rates, making sure that you keep in the members you've got. But as I said earlier on, I think it's more about evolution, perhaps a little bit of less is more, work out, what bits are really, adding that most value to the members, and keep doing those and doing them better. There may be the bits that were seemed like a good idea, let's not keep incrementally adding on and keep doing that. Let's really get under the skin of it and go, is less more in this case. So just because we did it last year and the year before, do we need to do it again? So let's have a honest conversation about those. So hopefully, in 12, 18 months, we might have, streamlined a few things, internal processes, maybe a few new products and services, and some elements in my review of the team, some elements of the business are, at capacity, which is limiting our opportunity to, maybe do an M.I.C.E conference every year, right? Because we haven't got the internal resource to do it. But if we've got the demand from members, I need to work hard to make sure I resource that up. So I think, 12, 18 months time, hopefully we'll be supporting the team so they can deliver to the members in the right way, maybe do few less things, maybe do a few new things.
How do you get feedback? How do you get, like you're saying, like which products and services maybe to develop? Research sounds like it's high on the list, which I think, we always want research, don't we? We always want.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, you're right. I mean, the acid test is on the day, right? If you've got smiles and pats on the back, then it's gone really well, and then also you've got to put it into a frame, with the AO awards, you'll have it's 1,300 people or whatever it is, and one person doesn't like the pudding. It's like, well, that's not really feedback, is it?
They'll be
They'll speak the
loudest.
loudest, right? And I'll be the one. So you've got to put it into context. But we formally follow up net promoter scores for all the events. So we'll know where we're at with that. The hardest thing with UFI is every event is brand new. So it's a new location in a new part of the world.
Yeah,
that's really hard on the team to create. There's no building on those relationships for the next event. So we have event by event feedback, and then as and when we pick a project, so we've currently got an education survey going out to look at really what do you want, how do you want to acquire knowledge for your teams, how do you want that delivered. We've got a new product called Exhibition Essentials, which is we piloted. It's a 10-part program that we've actually developed with Tahaluf over in Riyadh.
Oh yeah,
And it's really cool. And it could be that's everybody new that starts the industry goes and does that.
Go on then, tell us a bit more about that.
Well, it's a basic entry level scheme for all employees. Tahaluf put that as part of their induction program over a 12-18 month period. So we have a UFI trainer that comes in and delivers the 10 parts of that particular program that cover the basics about how an exhibition is operated, how it's built, how it's delivered, how it's marketed.
That sounds good.
It's really cool, but again,
you don't online, I guess.
The pilot has been face to face, so it's over a week's course. So because they're scaling up that business so quickly, so we were able to go in and deliver that face to face. But could you reconfigure that model? Would people, do they need it? Are they getting their training elsewhere?
They need it. They need it. We've had this chat before. They need it. And honestly, and there's nowhere to go for it. But would they? Obviously, face to face is much better, but it's not practical, is it? If you look at
but you go for it. Yeah, but I mean that might be one of the new things. But then, if everybody understands it, then they're more likely to stay, and they're more likely to get over the bumps in the road that they face, and then stay in the industry for a long time.
I mean, you're going back to like how do we market the industry? How do we? There's no established route into the exhibition industry. Everybody falls in, as we know. It's if you ask the man on the street, it's still kind of a latent industry, isn't it? It's like they don't really know what you're talking about. My mum still sort of says to me, "All right, so you run the Ideal Home Show, do you?" No, mum, no. Just use that as an example of what an exhibition is. You know what I mean? It's like people don't get it. They don't really get it. So I still think that's putting people in, and there's a course that you can go on, pretty much to get you up to speed.
Yeah, and some members do that, like they've got their own academies and things like that. So we don't want to tread on toes, but I personally think there's enough scale around the industry to create something online, very cost effective, that could put those through that process to build that understanding that make the magic come alive later, which would be really cool. So that's sort of one thing. So back to the question about feedback, we're doing a full blown research project. We're going to look at that in Q3 and then propose what we do going forward for Q4. So events quite easy. Different projects will seek feedback, and then ultimately, I get my homework marked every quarter with the board meetings and the excos, and I've got a brilliant trio with Hugh Jones, Jeff Dickinson, and M.I.C.E. So they're hugely supportive. We've got a little WhatsApp group, so it really helps you give you confidence to make decisions going forward and stuff like that. So and AEO is the same, and CISO is the same. You've got these brilliant business leaders that give us their time on the board, so they're going to be quick to let you know what's looking good and if there's any clouds on the horizon. So so our homework is marked all the time, which is good.
So the AEO's events program, if you like, was you did very well in kind of building that, and which was a great revenue source, as well as great networking opportunities and fantastic opportunities for the industry to thrive and get together, share, etc. What about replicating any of that for UFI? I know there's certain things in place, but obviously awards is something that would be difficult logistically, I know, but you kind of feel it's a missing piece of the jigsaw, or not?
So I think back to revenue for AO, the delegate fee covered the costs. The contribution to support the people and the overheads was the sponsorship. So we never made any more money out of members for the events themselves. So that was the model.
Okay.
But we do run a series of awards programs already. So each of our 5 working groups across things like HR and digital and marketing, they have an award program. So members put forward for that. We're just releasing the shortlist at the minute. So they'll all get announced in the Global Congress in Hong Kong. But it's not a ceremony per se.
No, just...
And the other thing we have is the next generation leaders.
Yes.
So, which is really cool. So 5 people from around the world, and they're meeting for the first time next week in Greece.
Yeah.
And they'll present their wares.
I'm looking forward to see what you do with that.
You know, you try and get a global spread from 5 people with different backgrounds and experiences to align on a topic, which is great. I think what's exciting is what else you could do with that. So if we've been doing this for 5 years and there's 5 people, that's 25 people. So you've got a futures board, you've got you've got those kind of things. Also, you've got the number of entries is insane. So you've actually probably got 400 people over that period of time who could be really, how could you nurture that sort of junior board or that group of people, because they're ultimately where the future is. For the industry, they'll hopefully become the CEOs of tomorrow, and so there's if it's always the way, isn't it? In any business, you try and align. You're rather than doing one thing, you try and align it into the whole of your activities. So this, I'm sure, will get cut and split into different outputs. So in the same way, we've got. I agree. I think the NGL is a great program, and I mean, goodness me, thank goodness I wasn't applying for the industry with those lot, because they're way smarter than I was. But there's that. But how could you harness that? How could you do more? So we've got Joe. Joe actually is co-chairing next week. He was a previous NGL winner, so he had a real, flamboyant personality. So he's on the stage next week in Greece. So, but that's a ad hoc one thing, right? And says surely we could create some structured engagement around that to sort of keep that alive.
How do you get your speakers normally? I mean, it must be difficult putting these programs together. We touched on it earlier, because everybody's at different levels, and you're kind of you can't be all things to all people. So that program must be quite hard to put together, and therefore the speaker's probably less difficult to find once you've got a program. Or is it the other way around? Other speakers have been.
We have. I mean, the honest answer is it's a nightmare, and you'll never please everybody. The Global Congress is 600 people from all over the world with all different stages of where they are in their markets, and you have organizer, venue, and a selection of suppliers. So they're all looking for something slightly different, but you've got to add value, and with the speaker lineup. So again, we're trying to get those sort of outside voices with stories that could be applied in the industry. So rather than new faces, new stories is sort of the underlying principle of that we try to do. But then sometimes you go, oh, I don't want to see so and so speak again, but they get 4.9 out of 5 on the feedback. So everybody goes, oh goodness sake, he's on stage or she's on stage again, and but what they deliver is quite unique. So, and again, you could throw the baby out with the bathwater, and then people just say, well, why isn't so and so there? Or then you could. So it is always tricky. But I think for me, it's about that sort of blend. And if you, it's funny. Greg Hitchin put something on LinkedIn a couple of days ago. TED Talks has gone from 20 minutes to 13 minutes, and what do you think? And, do you want a good constructed panel, or is it a 13-minute, assault on your senses or whatever? And for me, I think it's a bit of a blend, a good fireside chat for 30, 40 minutes with somebody that hasn't spoken on stage before is really compelling and should be compelling for everybody. A good panel session where people are really being honest about what they think. Actually, I think that's a really bad idea, Jules. We don't need to do a blueprint for venues, right? You want a little bit of honesty, and then people will go away on their views. A really good outside speaker talking about things that you go, oh, I hadn't thought of that problem that way. So, new faces, new stories with a little peppering of, I've been around the block a little bit, and last year's AO where we had Tony Robinson interviewed by Alison Jackson, you had people going, this is running on, I need to catch my train, but they were still waiting.
It's so difficult on the content. It's so difficult because
It's really hard.
if you put out a program that is in the news, AI, whatever, right? Everyone thinks, oh God, I've done AI to death.
Yeah.
So, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Why are you talking about AI? That's the first thing. But then if you put something there that is completely left field, people go, well, I don't want to come to that. But that's probably where they'll get educated the most.
So it's a bit like, so I'm going to be a bit controversial.
Go on.
Right. So you run a conference in venue A, and unless you've got a relationship with the conference, who wants some feedback on their food offering or the quality of the AV or whatever, if you're never going to go back to that venue or use that AV company again, I don't want to waste my delegates' time asking them about that, because it serves no purpose. Right? So, and then in the same way, when we do our post-event, I haven't actually seen what the questions are on the UFI one yet. Haven't got that far yet. But, why do people go to the events? They go for the community. They go for the connections. They go for hopefully some pre-arranged meetings. We've got a load of speed dating stuff next week. They're going to learn new things. They're going to meet new people. They're going for a bit of serendipity. They're going to experience something wonderful, whether that be the Sphinx or the pyramids or whatever. So, but do we ask them that on the post-event survey? Probably not. We probably ask them 2 questions about the content, and then the stuff about the venue, which may or may not be valuable. And and then we'll ask them about, I don't know, whatever it is. So I think if we're asking, if you were to ask, what was the MEA conference like for you, Jules? Did you meet people who you wanted to meet? Did you learn stuff about the market that you didn't know? Did you go and see places that you wanted to go and see? Then I think we can. Then that experience around that event will be a little bit more 360, rather than just asking, did you like the fact that Chris did an opening reception speech or whatever? So I think we're at risk of not asking the right questions and maybe too many of the wrong ones, but we need to think carefully about what questions we ask. And then I think that the overall feedback will be stronger, because I'm going to the AO Awards in a couple of weeks, right? Am I going to hear on the awards? Well, no, I haven't entered any, right? Am I there to meet connections? So I'm actually going for the experience. I'm going there to be entertained. I'm going to catch up with my old mates. I'm going to catch up with existing members, sponsors, and I'm not going for the awards, and that's the whole point. If you see what I mean.
I totally get that.
So I think if we can sort of step back and
the individual ingredients, you can actually turn around and say, well, no, it's hot, it was stuffy, the food, no, I didn't enjoy the food at all. What about the service? Oh no, the service is slow. Did you eat it or no? Did you like the act? No, I didn't like any of those. Did you have a good time? I had a great time.
Are you coming next year? Yes, I did. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And so yes, I think maybe the individual ingredients in that way, where we're getting bogged down in that, perhaps.
And we're all very lucky. You'll get feedback from your readers and your connections with your supporters. We'll get feedback, and we know from our working groups and from we use a conference producer who has a broader view of different industries that they service as well. So you get a good, we have members all over the world that go to other events that are in aligned industries and not. So we have this huge input of what to do. But I have no doubt that some people love it and some people will hate it. I'll have no doubt that, the likelihood of return will be really high because of all the other little bits, which might be, I don't know, whizzing around India in a tut-tut doing something or other. So there's those kind of things, I think, are part of the whole picture. But I do think that we have a tendency just to focus on one part of the pie. Everybody's got a slightly different view, which therefore I think a blend is good. and also everyone's different. So, I'm at a different stage in my career to maybe the next generation leader, so, I'm lucky that I've got a good network of people and always new people to meet. They not necessarily got that. So, my success at European, I'm looking forward to the whole event, of course, but meeting them, that's going to be inspiring. This is what the future is going to look like going forward. So, that'll may well be a highlight of next week. Is meeting those people, listening to their ideas about what the future format could look like. So, but everybody's expectations are going to be different, so it's definitely hard to manage. But I think asking broader questions may do that, and getting under the skin of why people are there. Because I think when you're at our stages of our career, it's probably about the community, it's probably about the network. And then hopefully it's about an experience, and I do think UFI's pretty good at creating some like memorable moments at the end of events.
I like that idea, creating memorable moments. I like that idea. I said, that's our ethos, is to do, or part of our ethos is to do that. Yeah. I like that idea.
And also that isn't Chris Hughes did a brilliant session at the AO conference up in Birmingham many years ago, and I think he did moments, memories, and something, I can't remember the 4 M's. He got people doing crazy things which made people really uncomfortable, but it's those but that struck me, that memories bit, and because it's been 100 years, we've gone back and asked people what your biggest memory of UFI is, and then you think back, I was fortunate to meet the Pope, who would, would I have bought a ticket to go and do that? No. Would I have queued to do that? No. Was I going because it was the CEO summit and you're meeting your members and potential members? Yes. But what do you remember? Actually sitting in a bus with Jeremy Reese going, why are we sitting in traffic? Why are we doing this? Why are we going? Well, why are we here? And then afterwards you go, oh my God, that is a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's very good. What about the team? Because obviously internally, you built a great team at the AEO. You're much loved and adored. And so you've taken on the team at UFI. Anything that you are going to adjust there, or bring things that you'll bring in, or that any plans there? Or is it?
I think you're always criticised an association if you build a team, because then you're building an empire.
Right? Yeah.
But there are 2 key, really important functions that are at capacity that need a bit more support, because the more support they get, the more we can do. So it's pretty lean broadly, but it's also it's fascinating because it's a French-based company. There are various different legislative things that they have to do, which we don't have to do in the UK, and because of that rigor in that process. So when I joined UFI, I had a meeting with every single member of the team. And in my first couple of weeks, I asked them, the same sort of 5 questions. And my last question was, if you were to give me one piece of advice, what would it be? And then I collated all that together, and then that's formed a little bit of my plan for that. And part of that, then you uncover where they need a bit more support or whatever. But because of these processes, one of them was, have you got any concerns? And they all went, no. Might have been because I was only there a couple of weeks. But generally, because there's this rigor and investment in their time, they all seem pretty happy, content, clear about what they're doing. So, I think that the team is, and it's also worldwide. We've got people scattered from, to Dubai, to Bogota, to Hong Kong, to Shanghai. So it's fascinating. So I spend a lot more time on Teams, keeping in touch with them. So I've got lots of one-to-ones that I have with everybody. But I think it's more about, streamlining a few processes, because we are 100 years old, and some of those we haven't had the time to look back at how we do that, and then upscaling in a couple of areas. But generally, I'm lucky. I left a great team. I've inherited a great team. So very lucky.
Last kind of questions. Conflicts around the world. I mean, there are a lot. And for a global association, that must be creating some headaches and some issues that you hadn't had to deal with necessarily at the AEO.
Yeah.
How are you dealing with that? Is it just? I mean, there's no, obviously you have no control over this, but you've got to ride a wave to a certain degree.
It's interesting. There was a few agitators a few years ago when a few conflicts started, and pushed a few of the associations to sort of make comments on political issues. And as a result of that, certainly at AEO, AEV, and ESSA, we went back and what is our purpose? What are we there for? Are we a commentator? Or because you are in a no-win situation. If you decide to comment, it will either be too strong or not strong enough. And actually, is that your purpose? And UFI and other associations isn't our purpose. So we have to rely on the bodies that look after all that really complex things. And I'd never apply for a job in any of them. It's way complicated. But you've got to look at where sanctions are and follow those bodies that are set up to try and overcome these conflicts, to try and help support people get through them and such like. So, we're not a political organisation, and perhaps in the past there was a pressure to comment, which I think subsequently there's been a lot of clarity around a lot of associations about actually that isn't really our place. But that said, we're not everybody is there are obviously businesses, members, people, industries all being affected. So and those people that are affected aren't necessarily the ones that are making the decisions on the actions. So we still support people, and as we should, and we offer help and support and advice. And then we will change our official approach to those areas when those change.
Does it get political though? I mean, with members saying, "Well, I don't want memberships from this part of the world," or what's happening here? Or, are you having to deal with any of that? Or
not so much. I mean, we have a membership process which has to follow. And it's all, like the AO, like AV, it's all the members decide who's in and whatever, but there's got to be a reason why not. And don't think we rejected any member. But obviously, if there are sanctions on a particular area, then you're not allowed to do that. But interesting, when you look around the world, different countries have different relationships with different trading partners. So, and there, I guess, lies the opportunity for the sector, which is not political, because it will be able to sort of move around wherever they are. But you've got to legally follow what you need to legally follow, and that's our stance. When that changes, we change, and to sort of commentate on something is there's lots of versions of truth which are really hard to understand, and but thankfully 6 months in, I've not had any experiences of those, and I hope the clarity that we had following the last set a couple of years ago is just people a little clearer about the purpose of an organisation, right? We're here for a range of reasons, to help businesses grow, to support and connect communities, to collaborate, communicate, to promote advocacy, do all the positive things that we do. So I've been focusing on that bit rather than anything else. It is a crazy place.
Well, that just about wraps it up. I think we've covered so many subjects. It's been fascinating and great talking to you as always, Chris. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks for coming in. That was excellent.
Man, it was an absolute pleasure. Always great spending time with you and the M.I.C.E team. Cheers.